Well, last night when we were in Chicago, we spoke to Veronique Posner. She's the mother of 6-year-old Noah Posner, who was killed at the Newtown massacre 2 months ago. And that very moving interview, by the way, is still on our website. Well, today we hear from the other side of the debate. I spoke to a man called Larry Pratt. He's the chairman of a powerful organization called Gun Owners of America. And I started by asking him what he made of the epidemic of gun violence in this country.
I would not agree that there's an epidemic of gun violence in this country. In fact, our murder rate has been declining over the last several years, even as more people own more guns.
But if you look at the murder rate, I think in 2010 it was 8,775 gun-related murders in the United States versus 58 in Britain. I mean, these are glaring statistics, aren't they?
It's a different culture. We have different statistics. You have a higher murder rate than just a gun rate, but and your violent crime rate is the fourth highest in the world.
But violent crime does not mean murder.
It does not. Right. But if you like to live in a violent society, be my guest.
The fact is, though, that the United States is the developed country in the world with the highest, by far, the highest murder rate caused by gun violence. Is that not something this country should be ashamed of?
This country should be proud of its ability to own firearms, because it's one of the things that distinguishes us from most of the rest of the world.
As do the statistics.
The statistical argument is not going to persuade Americans that their ability to own guns and keep the government at bay is going to be something that we're going to put on the table.
When you say keep the government at bay, and you talk about gun ownership, that sounds rather alarming. What do you mean by that?
Well, it was rather alarming to George III, too, when the colonists said, "You've become a tyrant, stop it." And when he wouldn't stop, we shot, and we got rid of your king.
George III wasn't democratically elected by the people of America. The president of the United States is. Surely times have moved on somewhat, haven't they?
Sometimes the president seems to forget that he was democratically elected.
Are you saying that Americans should exercise their Second Amendment rights to stand up against this current president?
I'm saying that the president should remember George III's experience.
That sounds like a warning.
Of course it is. That's what the Second Amendment is. It's a warning.
Isn't that kind of warning going to encourage some people to take a shot at the president?
No, no. It's an encouragement to people who are already being encouraged by the president's actions and his words to go and buy firearms, especially if they haven't owned them before, which is what's happening in this country.
But what you're saying is irresponsible, is it not, in a country where at least 3 presidents were killed by gunfire? I mean, if you've got a fairly high assassination rate of your leaders in this country, surely for calling to stand up against the democratically elected leader of this country, you're asking for trouble.
It's rather irresponsible to suggest that we should allow a tyrant to have his way and the people not be able to resist.
Are you calling the president a tyrant?
I'm not calling the president a tyrant yet, but the president certainly has indicated he has a low regard for the law and a low regard for the Constitution.
He was elected by the majority of people in this country.
The president was elected by a majority of the people. That does not give him a right to violate the Constitution.
But he's not violating it. He has said, I respect the Second Amendment. He's not going to do anything to get rid of the Second Amendment. You don't believe that?
He says he respects the Second Amendment even while he's doing all he can to destroy it.
But what's he done to destroy it in detail?
He's called for background checks, which he has no legal authority to do.
Hang on a second. How could you possibly object to background checks if you're the kind of person who says too many guns end up in criminal hands?
Background checks is only one piece of many parts of a legislative package on Capitol Hill. If that's the only thing that is finally enacted by one of the houses of the Congress, it'll go to a conference committee, and there that conference committee can add anything it wants. And so we are saying no gun control at all. Nothing, one word at all is acceptable.
Isn't what you're arguing the equivalent of saying in the car industry in the 1970s or 80s, no seat belts, no speed limits, no limitations on how people use their motor vehicles, which is essentially also potentially a lethal weapon if you drive badly?
You know, there's still many Americans that don't enjoy the notion that the government considers itself to be our nanny. And seatbelt laws are an example of a good idea being made compulsory.
And you're against that too?
I wear seatbelts all the time, but the idea that the government should tell me to do that, what, are they going to tell me to eat and when to go to bed?
Veronique Posner, the mother of a 6-year-old boy who was killed in Sandy Hook, talking about the prevalence of guns and opposition to gun control in Capitol Hill, said, and I quote, "America has lost its moral compass." What do you say to her?
Well, anyone who's lost a child is hurting. I lost a grandchild in a pool, and that still hurts. So my heart goes out to her, but that doesn't mean that I have to agree, nor can I agree, with what she's saying. I think we would lose our moral compass precisely if we gave up our right to protect ourselves.
Larry Pratt there. And the debate continues online with Channel 4. I'll be hosting a Google Hangout, a hangout, not a shootout, I stress, at 8:15. That's almost immediately after the program. If you want to listen and indeed join in with your questions and comments, do go to our website. That's channel4.com/news, and post questions and see the debate live. Again, at 8:15. Now back to you in London.
Thanks, Matt.